This Lent, we've been talking about listening for the heartbeat of God. Last week, we continued our journey into Celtic spirituality by exploring how early Celtic Christian leaders like St. Patrick and St. Bridget learned to listen for God and find God in the beauty, and the power, and the complexity of nature. Then we spoke of John Scotus, the Irish mystic who saw in this Celtic way of faith an important contribution to the wider faith community and sought to bring that contribution back into the mainstream of the church. And while he wasn't successful, Celtic spirituality continued to be lived out through Celtic monks that set up small monastic communities across the landscape of the outer reaches of Scotland. So as the years went by, visible signs of Celtic spirituality disappeared from public view, more in favor of that Roman Catholic spirituality in the parish system. But it still found its home among the people of the Western Isles, places like the Isle of Skye and Harris and Lewis. So outwardly, the people were part of that modern parish Roman Catholic system for the most part, but in their daily life, they continue to pray the prayers handed down to them through the generations for hundreds of years. These prayers were usually sung or chanted or recited as a rhythmic accompaniment to the people's daily routine, at the rising of the sun or the setting, at the kindling of the fire in the morning or covering it at night. These prayers used the most ordinary, everyday context and not really within the four walls of the church, because these people had been taught that the light of God was in them, and that the goodness of creation was all around them, that heaven and earth were bound together. They were listening to the one who began creation, listening to the one who is and always is close at hand. So in the middle of the 19th century, a young civil servant named Andrew Carmichael began to record these prayers that had been passed down for centuries in the oral tradition of the Hebrides on the west coast of Scotland. He went out and searched, he looked for all these different prayers and psalms, trying to kind of keep this Celtic way of spirituality alive. And all that work he collected became a 6-volume work known as the Carmina Gaelica, which means the songs and poems of the Gaels. These poems and prayers celebrate the goodness and power and grace of creation. All of creation. The joyous, warm, sunny days, the cold, rainy days, the harsh wind, the beautiful sunset. The people who lived on these western Isles of Scotland knew the elements could be harsh, but they believed that the grace of God was found in a love for all the elements that surrounded them. They even believed that the grace of healing was contained within creation. They viewed the life of God as being deep within creation, as well as being distinct from it, though. So it's not the same as God is creation. God is a part of everything. God's love, God's grace can be found in everything, but God isn't everything. They held a great reverence for creation while not deifying creation. So Carmichael found in the Outer Isles these old men that would still uncover their heads when they first saw the sun as they came out of the house in the morning. He says that they would hum a hymn that was not easily caught up, but not easily gotten from them. They sang, "The eye of the great God, the eye of the God of glory, the eye of the King of hosts, the eye of the King of the living, pouring upon us at each time and season, pouring upon us gently and generously. Glory to thee, thou glorious Son. Glory to thee, thou Son, face of the God of life." And when the sun set in the western ocean, the old men of an isle of Eriseg would remove their hats, bow their heads, and say, "I am in hope, in its proper time, that the great and gracious God will not put out for me the light of grace, even as thou dost leave me this night." As an old woman of Bar explained it, It's a matter of thankfulness. The golden bright sun of virtues giving us warmth and light by day, and the white moon of the seasons giving us guidance and leading by night. And it's noted that many of the prayers move like a shuttle on a loom between the physical and the spiritual, giving thanks for the material gift of light, while at the same time being aware of the spiritual light of God within creation. It's both and. See, part of Celtic spirituality is listening for God in all things. And these people got into a rhythm of it. At the rising of the sun and at the setting, they gave thanks for the simple gift of the sun rose again today. We have light, we have warmth. But in that, they saw the deeper gift of the light of God that is in all creation, that is in us. It's so easy to forget those things. We get into a rhythm of life that's all focused on, I have to do this, I have to do this, I got to get the dishes undone, I got to make the school lunch, I got to pack my bag, I got to get in the car, I got to get gas, and we forget the blessings of each day. We lose this rhythm. We forget that the sun rose again today. You know, as children, it almost amazes us to see the sun rise and set. It's going back down again. It's coming up tomorrow. This is amazing. It's a pity we lose that. We begin to take it for granted, this magicalness, this majesticness, majesty. That's a word that's out there somewhere. It means that. We lose it. You know, next week we're going to talk about the need for wonder and imagination in Celtic spirituality, the need for wonder and imagination for all faith, looking at that through the lens of fairy tales. We miss that sometimes as we grow older. We stop just living in wonderment at the world around us. But in Celtic spirituality, it's that same focus every day. The sun rose. Thanks be to God. The sun sets. And while that light's gone for a while, we know the light of God never leaves us. Do you find yourself getting into a rhythm of those things when you recognize God? When you listen for God in the everyday life? Or is it only when we need a favor? Or is it only when someone brings it to our attention and we're at church? Well, Sunday is a good time for that, but we lose it throughout our weeks. A few weeks ago, I told you about the Celtic belief that the image of God can be seen clearly in newborns. These people in the Western Isles who are still practicing this Celtic spirituality practice what's known as birth baptism. 3 drops of water would be placed on a child's forehead to acknowledge that the image of God, the image of the God of life, had been born into the world again. Sometimes we forget that. We give thanks for the miracle of birth, but the image of God has been born again into this world. Do you ever just take the time to stop at just how amazing that is? The image of God, brand new, fresh, the same yet totally unique, has come into the world in a brand new way. That's amazing. So these people would do this birth baptism, and they would still have the child baptized in the church, but it could take months for a priest to come to the most remote parts of some of these islands. A woman in Barrow, in reciting her birth baptism song, told Carmichael that she would put 3 drops of water on the head of the, quote, poor little infant who has come home to us from the bosom of the everlasting Father. And then she gave him a prayer that ended with the following 3 verses. The little drop of the 3 to fill thee with their pleasantness. The little drop of the 3 to fill thee with their virtue. Oh, the little drop of the 3 to fill thee with their virtue. The Trinity is now indwelling in the child. Each member brings a different blessing, a different role to play. the mother whispers quietly into the ear of her newborn, telling the child its birthright. The blessing of the Holy Three, little love, be dower to thee, wisdom, peace, and purity. From the beginning, they would talk about the birthright of a child as a beloved child of God, birthright into an inheritance that is everlasting, that cannot decay or rust or fade, as the book of 1 Peter tells us. This is your inheritance. Walk it off, lead into it in truth and beauty and joy. It's our birthright. As beloved children of God, we don't grasp it enough. We take it for granted. The Celtic belief is that we have the light of God within us, and that we're able to pray that light to shine through all the clouds and covers over anything that covers over it so it remains strong. They looked for God's grace in their life to enable them to become more loving, wiser, more like Christ. But they also never denied the need to be protected from evil. They were very aware of the existence of evil and the need to constantly be on guard against it. Whether they believed in demons or just the challenges we go through, our own personal demons we have sometimes, the traumas, the things that plague our world, from war and violence and disease and selfishness. We all have been victims of those things at some point, from inside ourselves and external. They recognize the need for guidance and protection. There's a blessing from the Carmina which asks so simply for the protection of the Trinity on a journey. Journeys are very important in Celtic spirituality. We'll talk more about that the Sunday after Easter in Columba's journey. But we all have these journeys. This blessing I've always loved. It says, "The guarding of the God of life be upon me. The guarding of the loving Christ be upon me. The guarding of the Holy Spirit be upon me each step of the way, to aid me and enfold me each day and night of my life." It's a beautiful blessing saying, God is here. Protect me, guide me in every situation. But this way of faith, this form of spirituality, has been repressed since the 7th century. The more formal repression really began in the 16th century with the Scottish Reformation. And along with this suppression of this faith also came the suppression of the Gaelic tongue, which was still widely spoken in the Western Isles and Highlands. Its suppression bears resemblance to the manner in which the Irish language was suppressed for hundreds of years. And even in our country, indigenous languages weren't allowed to be spoken. But as people share with Carmichael, they often preferred to do it in the quiet of night or in the next village over so they wouldn't risk getting in trouble. But Carmichael's work captured what soon would have been lost to the dust of history. But because of his work, this beauty of that old way of seeing found a new life. And enables us to not only know how they viewed the world and faith in God, but helps us be able to choose that path for ourselves. Now, I think their spirituality isn't the only way, but it is a way that can give us a new and good perspective on faith. And all through their life, Celtic Christians sought for the light of God as they listened for the heartbeat of God in all things, in life and in death. We belong to God in life and in death. In death, the Celts believed that the angels of God would guide them over to a goodness of unimaginable glory. But rather than seeing this goodness as unrelated to the present world, a brand new thing, they saw it as a continuation of the goodness experienced here in creation and in the earth's cycles of seasons. To them, it was a return to the very heart of the seasons, the source of all creation, a returning to the one who is at the very heart of life. So I want to end with this prayer from the Garmina, which was said at the deathbed of a loved one, that speaks to the depth of hope found in this tradition, and speaks not just to the one who is facing death at the moment, but to the people as a whole, and to the whole of creation. This is what they would say when a loved one was approaching death. Thou goest home this night to thy home of winter, to thy home of autumn, of spring and of summer. Thou goest home this night to thy perpetual home, to thine eternal bed, to thine eternal slumber. The great sleep of Jesus, the surpassing sleep of Jesus, the sleep of Jesus' wound, the sleep of Jesus' grief, the young sleep of Jesus, the restoring sleep of Jesus, the sleep of the kiss of Jesus of peace and of glory. The shade of death lies upon thy face, beloved, but the Jesus of grace has his hand round about thee. In nearness to the Trinity, farewell to thy pains. Christ stands before thee, and peace is in his mind. So sleep, O sleep, in the calm of all calm. Sleep, O sleep, in the guidance of guidance. Sleep, O sleep, in the love of all loves. Sleep, O beloved, in the Lord of life. Sleep, O beloved, in the God of life. So in your rising and your laying down, with the rising and the setting of the sun, listen for God in all things. In the mist that comes off the river in the morning, in the gentle blow of wind that touches your face, in a dog running through a yard, in a child laughing for no particular reason whatsoever, for a robin gathering sticks for its nest, for the rain that waters the earth, for the cold that makes us shiver, for the warmth that makes us sweat and sleepy. In all things, listen for God, who is with us and for us, whose love never lets us go, whose light shines in us. And take a moment to enjoy and revel in the beauty and majesty of all creation. That the sun rose again today. It'll set again tonight. It'll rise again tomorrow. Babies are born as a fresh new image of God in the world. And that you bear the image of God. You are the image of God to your family and to your neighbors. You are the image of God to so many. Have you ever thanked God for that? So in your daily routine, offer a prayer to God of thanksgiving, of wow, of confession, and know that God is in all things and is for all things for you. As we come to this table, we remember the death of Jesus. We remember his life. And in his life, death, and resurrection, we find life. And we know eternal life and calm and guidance and love this day and evermore.